As for the national emergency part of this, Trump, speaking of disasters, Trump had his chance to get up in front of the country, make his case for it from the Rose Garden, to explain everything that's going on. To sign a national emergency is a drastic step, right? Everyone can agree with that, whether you support it or not. We all agree you're saying emergency, right? So you put yourself into the shoes of the president. Let's say you're the president. You're going to be signing a national emergency and using that as a way to allocate billions of dollars to fund this project that you want to do. Okay. Well, when you have a chance to get up in front of America and make the case for it, wouldn't you want to make sure that you've got a very coherent, cogent speech that you're going to give? Isn't that what you would do? But instead, I don't know if you watched the Rose Garden speech, but it was not good. I wanted to say disaster, but I've been using that word way too much. It was not good. He rambled for 20 minutes and barely offered one coherent sentence in the whole thing. Going back, if he was talking about China and talking about North Korea, jumping back and forth to various different topics, doing the kind of thing he does at his political rallies, which I guess if you're into that kind of thing and you like the whole shtick at the rallies, I'm personally not a big fan of it. But when you're giving a speech at the Rose Garden to explain a national emergency that you just signed, this is not the time to just get up with no preparation and no prepared remarks and just ramble. Not the time for it. It was just bad. And of course, I'm watching the reaction on social media, and most people were cringing at it and saying, "Okay, this is catastrophic for the president politically." But I also saw there were, Trump's most loyal supporters and fans were saying, "Oh, this is great. This is wonderful. Yeah, he's talking straight. This is what we like. We need more of this." Now, so you're not helping. First of all, if you watch the speech, you know that it was not good. You know that. So to pretend otherwise, why are you pretending? And you're not helping. Don't encourage the president to do that more often. Look, everyone agrees. You watch the State of the Union speech. It was a brilliant speech. Great performance. All around, right? Very compelling. Well, all of that is now a distant memory. It's been buried under everything since. Let me ask you, if you're a supporter of the president, do you think we should have more of the State of the Union type moments or more of what we saw this morning at the Rose Garden? What do you think is more compelling? What do you think is going to be more convincing to people? Especially those who are not already huge fans and totally bought in, the people that are more in the middle, the people that, by the way, the president's going to need if he wants to get reelected in 2020. Now, if you are all in and you're a big fan of the president, then he's already got you. No matter what he does and says, you're going to vote for him, right? So he doesn't need to appeal to you. He needs to appeal to everybody else. And the rambling off the cuff, riffing off the cuff thing, it's only appealing to people like you, not to anybody else. So as far as the national emergency itself, you're going to hear, of course, extremes on both sides. Again, Trump's most loyal supporters and fans are calling it a move of brilliance, a win, so on and so forth. It is not that. This is not a win. It's a way out. It's a way around. It's the thing you do when you don't win. A win would have been build the wall. A win would have been a bill that allows them to actually build the wall. That's a win. This is plan B or plan C. Now, whether it's a good plan B, whether it's a good way around, that's another question. But then the usual suspects on the other side, they're all losing their minds, of course, as they do with everything Trump does, claiming that this is some kind of constitutional emergency, it's a catastrophe, it's tyranny, it's he needs to be impeached, and yada, yada, yada. Well, that's not the case either. Presidents have been declaring national emergencies for frivolous reasons for a long time. So even if you think this is a frivolous reason, well, he's not the first one to do that. Obama was certainly a culprit. Obama also rewrote our immigration laws by executive fiat, so this is not new. Now, if we can point out that other presidents have done it, that doesn't necessarily mean it make it good, but that does mean that you can't really panic over it or treat it as unprecedented, especially if you weren't panicking when other presidents did it. So it's not a constitutional catastrophe. It's also not a big win. I think it falls somewhere in the middle. I think the main problem with it is that it is a political stunt that will not lead to a single mile of fence actually being built, especially when you combine it with the spending bill. That's the problem with it. Not a constitutional emergency, but it's not going to do anything. In fact, Trump even said in his speech that he knows. He went on this whole rambling riff about how we're going to get sued, then we're going to end up in the courts, then we're going to go to a different court, now we're going to be in the Supreme Court. You know, he knows exactly what's going to happen. And he knows there's a good chance he's going to get shot down. He knows that. And of course he knows that. Now, should he be saying that when he first signs the... I mean, when you're signing a national emergency, you shouldn't say publicly, yeah, by the way, I'm going to get sued for this. But of course he is going to get sued, so that's no surprise. And it seems unlikely to me that the courts are going to be on his side with this, whether or not they should be. It seems unlikely that they will. So there's at least a very good chance that nothing will come of this. And that's my problem with it. Another thing, though, is you're hearing from some conservatives that their worry is that now this sets a precedent, and so the next Democrat president is going to do the same thing, and we're going to get a national emergency declared over climate change, and the president is going to use that as an excuse to do whatever they want to do, appropriate whatever money, do whatever they want to. Maybe we'll get a national emergency over guns. Gun violence is a national emergency, and maybe they'll use that and somehow be able to confiscate guns. I mean, so you've got conservatives worrying about that. I understand that concern. It is not a unreasonable concern, but I think the Democrats will do that anyway. So I'm not in the camp. I don't think that Democrats are waiting for Republicans to set a precedent before they do it. Democrats don't need the permission of Republicans to do something like that. To me, it is all but certain, even aside from this, it is pretty much a certainty that the next Democratic president will declare a climate change emergency, because they really do think that they think it's a global emergency. They think, and their base certainly thinks, that we are on the verge of extinction as a species because of climate change. And so it is, regardless of any of this, even if Trump was never elected, I think was always a certainty that we were going to get a national emergency declared over climate change eventually. And then whatever comes of that. Probably the same for gun violence. So I think we're heading in that direction regardless. I can't join the conservatives who have, I think it's a reasonable concern, but I also think that probably it would happen anyway. My main objection is, like I said, it probably won't amount to anything. But then the second part of that is, we had 2 years. There were 2 years prior to this where the wall could have been built, and you wouldn't have needed a national emergency. You wouldn't have needed any of the theatrics. You wouldn't have needed to shut down the government. And I know you could say, well, Mitch McConnell and, he wouldn't allow the Republican establishment wouldn't allow it to happen. And yeah, they deserve a fair amount of the blame. But Trump, at any point during those, Paul Ryan, is the other one that gets blamed. But during any point in those 2 years, if Trump had taken the stand that he took once Democrats got into office and said, no, we are doing this now, I am not signing anything until it happens. If he had done that with Republicans, the wall would have gotten built 100%. Yeah, they may have been resistant to it, but he has leverage over Republicans. See, the thing is, once Democrats got into office, once they controlled the House, it was a lose-lose situation. There was no way it was going to happen. because Democrats have no reason to ever agree to building a wall. Their base doesn't want it. Their donors don't want it. They all hate Trump. So why would they ever agree to something like this? Of course, politically, it wouldn't make any sense for them. So Trump has no leverage over Democrats at all. None. He does have plenty of leverage over Republicans. So if he had put his foot down and said, we're doing this now, and then any Republican who refuses, well, then they would have their constituents and their base coming after them. But Trump didn't take that step for those 2 years. He said he wanted it. He complained that he didn't get it. You know, he made gestures towards it a few times, but nothing like this. It wasn't until Democrats got in that he was willing to shut down the government and, if necessary, declare a national emergency. If he had that kind of determination for the 2 years leading up to this, the wall they'd be building it right now. That's the fact. And you cannot absolve Donald Trump of all guilt in this as much as you might want to. You can't. It's absurd. So what we have now is theater. This is just theater. All of this is theater, and it's going to end with it's going to amount to nothing. If this was about actually getting something done, it could have been done. All right. I've got to move on to something else before I have an aneurysm. Just everything about this just pisses me off. Everything and everybody, all sides, everybody. I'm just sick of everything and everybody. And I want to go live in the woods. I want to just take my family and go live in the woods in a cave somewhere, subsisting on honey and wild locusts, much like John the Baptist.